I remember watching Brock Lesnar do a front flip and land on his head. And I'm like, any other human is paralyzed from that.
Yeah.
Any other human. To be 300 plus pounds, to be built like a fucking superhero, and to do a front flip and land on your fucking head. Most people are dead.
I think it was a backflip. I think it was a moonsault, right?
Was it?
Wasn't
Yeah,
a
I think so.
moonsault.
You would know more
It was
than
like
anybody.
an inverted.
Yeah.
He stood forward looking at you. It was like an inverted.
So it
flip he
was
trying
forward.
to-
There it is, Tony.
Oh, it is forward, yeah.
Look at the fucking
Well, watch him invert.
size of
Oh,
him.
it was a forward backflip.
And he
Jesus
landed on his
Christ.
own head.
Oh, my God.
Dude, that's insane.
Yeah.
Most people are dead.
Yeah. Yeah,
Most
no doubt.
people are dead.
Well,
I mean,
get-
I don't know what permanent damage he suffered, but by the way, he went from that to fighting the UFC.
Yeah.
He fought in the UFC after that,
Well,
which is insane.
Well, I got him first when he came back from the UFC, okay? And I was kind of like winding down, putting guys over and doing my thing. And Vince goes, I want you to work with Brock. I went, okay, well, I knew his buddy Brad Riggins, who was he lived in Minnesota. He was the coach of the Olympic team several years back. And so when Brock was in high school, we had heard of him. We kept an eye on him, you know. But when he came back from UFC, they gave him to me first, and he was really intense, brother. You know, he was really intense. So my whole thing is we always grab somebody and squeeze them and give them the office. Like, if you got my head and you're about to break my neck,
Right.
I'll give you the office so you
Right.
lighten up, you know. And I squeezed the piss out of him, giving him the office, and finally I just started calling him Broccoli. And I said, Broccoli? I got him to laugh a little bit. I said, let me tell you something. If you keep hurting me in here, if you don't loosen up on the old man here, I'm going to make you look really, really bad because you're going to be in here by yourself. You know, I used to tease him all the time because he's a really good friend, you know. And so when I got him first, he was really, really intense. And now he's turned out to be one of the best workers this business has ever seen.
Yeah.
I mean, he draws money, he backpedals, he sells, he's got instinct. He's, got placement, he knows where he's at, he listens. Like, you don't have to tell him what to do. You don't have to have a right or write the match out. He goes out and listens to the crowd with his mind and his heart, and it's something that's a lost art form. He's got it, man. So he figured it out.
That's interesting that it's like a lost art form because for people who don't know how you guys do a match, like there's a lot of improvisation going on.
Yeah, if you're really good at what you do, you're in the back. And all of a sudden, if you're really good at what you do, back in the day, I'm talking old school stuff, the referee would come to you and say, hey, Hogan, they want you to go over Piper with a leg drop, or they want a count out or whatever, So knowing that, Piper was so good at what he did, or Mr. Wonderful, a lot of guys I worked for, we'd be, if we were in the same dressing room, we wouldn't even talk. I'll see you out there, brother. You're going over tonight. Okay, I'm going over. It was that good, and the crowd will tell you what to do. If you listen.
And you guys have worked together so many times.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a lot of times where you run into guys like Chris Jericho. First time I ever worked with him, they wanted Jericho to put me over, and Jericho and I went out there, and I didn't know what to expect, and he was brilliant in the ring. It was like magic. We didn't even have to say a word. I told Vince, I said, give me that guy every night. That's like a day off, I didn't get hurt at all.
What's incredible with Brock is that Brock went from pro wrestling to being the UFC heavyweight champion. I mean, and did so with such a short amount of time of training in MMA. I mean, obviously he had a spectacular amateur wrestling career. He was a legit top flight amateur wrestler and a fucking genetic freak. All those things. But to be able to make that transition to winning the fucking world title against a guy like Randy Couture, I don't think he gets enough credit for what I think a lot of people say, oh, he was so big and he was this and that and he did steroids and there's all these excuses. Like, you don't understand what that guy did. Like, what that guy did is nothing short of insanity. Like, no one's ever done that before. No one's ever gone from, I mean, the way he did it too, and to fucking... To get in there and beat a guy like Randy, who's, one of the best of all time. Like, Randy was a real pioneer, and Randy was still really at the top of his game back then. It wasn't that, he was just fucking a freak, just a real freak. Like, I always said that if, like, that guy, like, fresh out of college, like, if we were in a different era, like, if he's coming fresh out of college today, and someone like Faraz Sahabi or, Henry Hooft, like some top flight MMA instructor gets a hold of him. as a young man and teaches him how to strike, where he's comfortable and he can move just like elite guys of today. Fuck. He would have been unstoppable. He would have been unstoppable.
He's a monster, brother.
He's a monster.
He still is. Still is.
He's like the biggest genetic freak maybe I've ever seen in the sport.
Me and my crew used to go to the Royal Rumbles for a few years back.
Yeah.
And there's 30 people. One comes out every minute. And that's where you really see what a freak he is. Because it stands out amongst 30 other wrestlers. You can tell with 2, but with 30, and he comes in and he's flying. He's faster than the other people. He's stronger than the other people. It's the closest thing to it is like watching LeBron James play basketball. You're like, how does he move like that? He just got to the hoop in 2 steps, and that's what he's doing in the wrestling ring.
You ever see his NFL combine numbers? He had like legit top flight combine numbers, like ridiculous numbers. See if you can pull those up, because just a fucking freak, man.
Yeah.
Like a real rare one. Very fast, too. Like his run was fast. Look at this. 6'3", weighs 283 pounds, a 40-yard dash of 4'7". 4'7".
That's crazy.
At 283 pounds.
That's insane.
Jump 35 inches vertically and 10 feet from the standing long jump. 10 feet. He's hurling He's hurling almost 300 pounds, 10 feet. He can bench 225 pounds for 30 reps. 225 for 30 fucking reps.
That's crazy.
Dude. Oh, look, it's me. Astounded. I've been astounded multiple times by that guy.
That's crazy.
There's a few guys that I say,
He
like,
can still go, brother.
yeah, I'm sure he can still go. Well, there was talk about him fighting again in the UFC just fairly recently, like a few years ago. I mean, I'm sure in the back of his head, he still wants to stomp some people,
He's intense, brother. I mean, last time I was around him, I was in Saudi Arabia with him. He's real intense. He hasn't changed a bit.
I mean, the guy he goes and fights Frank Mir, who's a former UFC heavyweight champion, right into the top of the food chain, gets leg locked, comes back and beats Frank Mir in the rematch, just beats the shit out of him. I mean, he was the real deal, man. And a lot of people don't give him enough credit. And then there was the problem with the diverticulitis, so he had to get a long section of his intestine removed, I believe. Yeah. I believe it was his intestine.
Well, he eats everything that he hunts. That's the deal.
Yeah.
So he's always out hunting stuff.